Okay, if you already saw my other video, then you know what's going on. But I want to talk about what it feels like. Because this is how your brain kind of likes to lie to you. Because I feel like nothing I do has any value. I feel like nothing I say matters. And I know people are going to be coming in here going, Cindy, of course what you say matters. It matters to me. And I know. And I'm going to be emotional here, so just bear with me. But on February 11th, because it was the Sunday before Valentine's Day, I had posted on Facebook about, feeling abandoned by God and stuff like that. And, my choir director, John, we went through our choir warm-up and all of that, and then he gave us our break so that everybody could, go to the bathroom and get a drink or whatever, before Mass started. And when I came out of the bathroom and was walking up towards the choir loft, he came up to me because I guess he'd seen my Facebook posts. I don't know, because we follow each other on Facebook, so we're Facebook friends, and so, and also so I can contact him without having to call him and be like, hey, I'm not going to be there or something like that, But he must have seen my Facebook post because he looked me squarely in the eye, and then he came over to me and he gave me the biggest, tightest hug. And he's like, oh, Cindy, you are hurting so bad. I could see it. Okay, so he, he held on to me for a long time because I was basically kind of, my hands were like claws holding on to him. I needed to be held, is what I needed. That was one thing I needed. And then we pulled back, but he held on to my hands. And he told me, I'm not going to, spill his story because it's not my story to tell, but I will tell you that he went through alcoholism. He went through a really bad divorce many, many years ago. This was a long time ago when his kids were little. I mean, he's in his 60s now. And this was when he was 20, 30. And that he's been suicidal, and he grew up with a difficult dad. His dad was difficult in ways that were a little different than mine, but similar enough that he understands my anguish and where it comes from. And he told me that during the time in his life when he was alone because his first wife had left him, and he had 2 little kids he had to take care of, and he was spiraling, and he didn't know what to do. And he said when he was in an Alcoholics Anonymous meeting that the person running the meeting said sometimes you can't focus on tomorrow or the next week or the next month. You need to focus on how are you right now, right this second. How are you right now? And he's like, Cindy, how are you this moment now? And my eyes were huge. I was wearing my mask, and thank God, because the entire church would have seen me breaking down and crying. I just said, John, I'm scared. I said, I feel like God has turned his back on my family, and that he doesn't love us, and that he's just leaving us like this. And, leaving us with my dad to just suffer and struggle, and there's nothing else for us anymore except to suffer and to struggle. And it's not fair. And he said, you're right, that is not fair at all. And he said, but I don't think God abandoned you because God loves you so much. And that it's the devil that's telling you these things that to turn away from God. And you don't listen to the devil, do you? And of course not, I don't. And he said, God loves you because I don't think I'd be here talking to you if he didn't. And he said, how do you feel now? And I'm like, I'm scared. I just kept repeating that I was scared, and he held on to me, and he said, that's very honest, and I'm glad you're sharing this with me, that you're scared, because I could see that you're scared. But right now, I'm here with you. At this point, the tears were just coming down my face and getting my mask all wet. I was just crying and holding on to him. And he said, "We're all here for you." And we had to go to mass, but he said that you just focus on this moment right now where you are, and don't think about 5 minutes from now. Think about this second right here. And I said, "But what if my dad interrupts me?" And he's like, "Well, that's a new now, but right now, where are we? We're here. We're here in this moment together now, and I'm with you now, and God is always with you now." And I needed that reminder. I needed to hear that. I'm Catholic, so, like, just saying. But he was with me for that, and I spent most of that mass just crying. And, like, when we got to the responsorial about, when you're troubled, turn to God, and John, he looked at me and he did the heart hand thingy. He went, and he did the, I can't do it with the mic in my hand, but, the heart hands. And I did it back just to let him know that I knew he was pointing at me. But then on Thursday, the day after Valentine's Day, I cried to my choir about what had happened. And a guy in my choir named Greg, who runs a business similar to Visiting Angels, I think it's like Care at Home or something like that. He approached me, and I took him out to my mom, and they talked a bit. And he gave her his business card, and she called him, and after some back and forth, Greg basically donated a helper to our house. So, like, Mondays and Fridays, we're going to meet the guy tomorrow. So, Mondays and Wednesdays, Mondays and Wednesdays, we're going to have somebody come over, somebody that can bathe my dad, just kind of be his hands and feet so that we can have a little break, a little bit of respite. And there are people in the choir that are offering to come over and, like, clean and stuff so that Mom doesn't have to hurt her back, because her back is going out. And bending over to take care of my dad and clean up his bed and stuff is what causes her so much pain. But just having this outpouring of people is amazing to me. And at the same time, there's, like, this weird kind of a shame. This weird feeling of shame, like I'm putting upon them. I feel like I'm so burdensome, and that asking for help and bothering other people is something bad. But that's kind of what I was raised in, is that, that's some of the damage my dad did, is that if you have to bother people to change their behavior for your benefit, to make them do what you need to do, blah, blah, then you're being a manipulative little brat. Well, what does my dad do all the time? Exactly that. Make other people change for his benefit, regardless of how detrimental it is to them. He's the reason that I'm going on antidepressant medication and anti-anxiety medication. He's the reason. But the rage attacks I'm having, I have to leave the kitchen if I feel it coming on. It's not a meltdown, it's different. I have to leave the kitchen because if I'm holding a plate, I will smash it, and I don't want to. But I just get the thought, and I know as soon as I have the thought, it will become an impulse, and I will act. So I just put the plate down and I leave, and I go in my room and I scream or whatever, or I yell or I cuss. I don't care. My dad can hear me next door. I don't care that he hears me cuss. I don't care anymore. But I just feel like there's no words for how it feels. It's like being hollow inside almost. It's like being empty. It's like, it's like you try to find a word to describe it, and there is no word. It's just a blank. And then there's the sadness, just the unbearable sorrow. It's like I'm grieving almost. And then, I kind of am going through grief because of my cat Monroe. I haven't had the time to properly grieve because my dad and his whole health disaster happened very soon after. He basically ruined Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, and New Year's Eve for me forever. They're associated with trauma for the rest of my life because of him. And my birthday wasn't enough. He had to do it to the holidays, too. So, and everybody says, oh my God, it's not his fault. He's got Parkinson's. He can't help it. He lets go of his walker and he falls. Okay? So he could avoid it, and he just didn't. He just fell because, I don't know, I don't care. But when he was out of the house, I felt great. When he had to be in that rehab facility that let us down and dumped him back on us. When he was not here, I was happy. I was content. I was functional. And then when he came back, it's like having the Chernobyl elephant's foot right next to me. It's just such a toxic waste. And it's destroying me. And I have to be on meds to survive it. But that's where I am. And it's not pretty. And I'm probably going to document my journey. I don't know what it will mean. But the person that will be counseling me was the person I saw for my anger issues before, Dr. F. So she's familiar. So I don't have to feel like I have to explain my story to her again. We can just pick up where we left off, I guess. I don't know. But, God, I'm rambling too much. I'm going to shut up. But that's where I am. So, whatever happens,